talk about testimony today. And this is a very important concept, or let's say protocol of the Spirit, if you want to live a really healthy life. The power of our mind, the power of our soul, what it engages in is very important. And so what you meditate on is vital. We're going to talk about, in Hebrew, it talks about the Ark of the Testimony, or the which was the Ark of the Covenant, and they call it the Ark of the Testimony. And the testimony, that word testimony, is a very interesting word that, and this is in the Strong's Concordance, it means concretely a witness, okay, a witness to something. And then if you break down the word that is a root word, it means to duplicate. So this is why a lot of times in miracles, signs, wonders, really miracles and healing, we have words of knowledge, or we give a testimony of God healing people. Some people don't respond to that. Some people don't. I can tell you that I pray for people, and I'll give them a testimony, and sometimes it just goes right over their head because they haven't learned the power of the testimony. But in a spiritual environment, this is really where it works well. I mean, in the street, what works well is a prophetic word. But in a church environment or a ministry environment, a word of a testimony works extremely well too, because people are in there and it starts building their faith. So even when you do the word of knowledge, and then they come up and they're healed, then you could give the testimony. So I've seen many testimonies, and it talks about this in the book of Revelation. It says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives unto death. Okay, and now why is that important to understand? Number one, you can't love your life more than you love God. You have to even trust him in death if you're going to be martyred. And martyred really is the word that means witness, and we saw that in the Hebrew. So in the Greek, martyr or witness is the word martyred. We've kind of made martyr to now mean one who is put to death for his witness, but it actually means the word witness, and it's to record. Same thing as the other one. It's to record and all that and do that. So what is the power of that? Well, this is what the Bible is, okay? The Bible is the testimony of what God's done, what we have written in here, from the water to wine, the feeding the 5,000 and the 4,000, from the axe head floating to the waters parting, to the manna appearing, to the oil. All this is God's testimony, from the healing, from the blind eyes being opened, the lame people walking, the blind see, the deaf hearing, the mute speaking, the dead raised. This is the testimony of God. And it's not just history, which is what a lot of people will reduce this down to. It's the history. No, it's greater than the history. It is the testimony. You can meet God in the testimony and have some work, have a miracle produced. So let me give you a couple testimonies, if I may. And I'm going to try to do this maybe for a couple weeks, just go over some testimonies. There was a Sunday morning in our church, and I got a word of knowledge on knees being healed. And I said, if you have a knee issue, raise your hand. And about 5 people raised their hand. I prayed for them. Some said they felt relief. Some people said they felt relief, but never really manifested. But it wasn't for them. But there was this guy, Ralph. And Ralph was from Puerto Rico, and he was up and visiting our church because he was in Jacksonville with a company that, this was like 2008, 2009. Companies were going out of business, and his company came in and dissolved all the assets. They would sell off whatever they had, equipment and stuff. That's what they did. And he was in our city for about 4 weeks, so he came. And he was coming to our church, and I didn't have the opportunity to meet him. But he went back that Sunday. And he said, this was his testimony the next Sunday. He came back the next Sunday. He said, Pastor, I've got to tell you something. I said, what? He said, last week when you gave that word about the knees, I felt something, but I didn't want to say anything. I felt like my knee was healed. He said, I used to run 5, 6 miles a day, 5, 6 days a week. I used to just run. I loved to run, but I really tore up my knee and I couldn't run anymore. He said, but I felt something. So I got up Monday and I went for a run. And Tuesday, got up for a run. And Wednesday, went for a run. And Thursday, went for a run. He said, I've ran every day and my knee is perfectly fine. It's healed. And that testimony, that's a testimony. That's a testimony of the power of God, but it's also the opportunity for you to take hold of the fact that God heals and he heals today and take hold of it for your own life. That's the power of the testimony. See, when we reduce this book, as so many people sometimes do, it's God's word, it's his history, it's so you know about God. Okay, know what about God? Not that God healed, that's not what he wants you to know, but that God heals even today. That's what he wants you to know. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And the testimony brings about that. So we've had so many testimonies at our church, and I'm so grateful for all of them. One time at our church, there was a girl. She's no longer. She moved to D.C., but she had a cyst in the back of her neck right here. She had a cyst in the base of her skull, she said. And the doctor had it for 10 years. The doctor said, we can't take it out. It'll just leave this big hole. And we don't want to leave that. It just won't look right. So it's sore, but if you can deal with it, that's probably the best way to do it. And all of a sudden during worship, no one prayed for her. It was just during worship. And she felt heat and she touched the back of her head and the cyst was gone. Completely gone. But you know what was more important? She didn't have a hole. She didn't have a hole in where that was at. And she went to the doctors and they confirmed the cyst was gone, but it was completely normal. See, God heals today. And why have we come to the place in the church where, you know what, here's why I think we've done. I think the reason many don't believe in the healing power of God today is because we have elevated knowledge to a very dangerous level to thinking that it is by knowledge things get done. And so what happens with knowledge is, I don't understand healing. I don't understand how that works. And so we can't understand it. A lot of people in apologetics cannot explain healing power. They cannot do it. They'll say, they don't want to say God doesn't do it. But here's what they have trouble with, that God wants to do it through you, that God wants you to pray for people and have healing. They just cannot get themselves to apprehend that. People have a real problem with God using us today. We have no problem if we lead someone to Christ. We believe we can lead someone to Christ, that they come to know Jesus. We can do that. That we can do. But you know what we don't believe? We don't believe that the same co-laboring with God can heal someone. In other words, do you think you lead someone to Christ because you actually explained it so well that they came to Christ? Or do you not know the Spirit was working through you to bring that person to Christ? See, why is it we actually think it's our knowledge that led them to Christ? It's not. It's the Spirit of God. You don't get to brag before God. You don't get to say, God, look at all the souls I won. You get to say this, God, thank you for helping me to win souls. Thank you for working for me. But you don't get to act like you did it because you're so smart. That's why I love the supernatural. That's why I love the miracles. That's why I love seeing people get healed and set free and delivered. I'll give you one more testimony. I got home one night, 10:30 at night. I was at a school of the prophets, and I got home at 10:30. Kathy, I think, was asleep, and a friend of mine, a coworker, Ann, left me a voice message. Did you hear about so-and-so? His wife is in the hospital, and she's losing the baby. And she was 21 weeks along. And it's 10:30. Now it's like almost, 10:45. It's very hard to get through to the hospital late at night. They won't just put you to rooms. But I said, let me try. And I called and I went to the main desk, main phone center. I said, could you can you transfer me to the women's pavilion, which is where they do, I knew where they do the baths because we had 3 of them. And they said, sure. And I said, is so-and-so there? Can you put me through the room? She said, oh, sure. Which is, looking at her, this is very odd to do this. This is very odd. This is before cell phones. So, this is before I could do it with a cell phone. Okay. Now I had a cell phone, but I didn't know his cell number. So it's and so I called and got in, and he picked up. I said, put your wife on the phone. Now, I had never met his wife. Okay, he was a coworker. But, to his credit, he said, hey, this is one of my coworkers, Lewis. And I just said to her, this is what I said to her. Do you want to keep the baby? And she said, yes. I said, put the phone on your stomach and don't take it off until I'm done. And for the next 30 minutes, I began to prophesy and speak health and life into that child. I kept speaking that she would carry it to term and the baby would, and I kept prophesying and speaking it to it. And after about 25 minutes, she heard me say, okay, I'm done. Doctors came in, they did some more tests. They told her about 2 hours later, hey, everything stopped. We don't know why, but everything stopped. Everything's just back to normal. Well, I think they kept her overnight, and then she carried the baby to, I think, 34 weeks and had a baby. I didn't see that kid until my son was 15 and he was 16, and they played baseball. They didn't play together. We weren't in the same leagues, but we were actually in a tournament down in Stanford, Florida, I think it was. And I saw him walk over, and then she walked over, and I had met her at this point, but she said to her son, this is the man who prayed for you that you would live, and God heard him. That's humbling. Now, I want you to know, I didn't do it, but I did it. Now, here's what I mean by that. We don't do it apart from God. We do it with God. We cannot do it. We cannot heal anyone apart from God. But Jesus said we can do all things with God. Jesus says, apart from me, you could do nothing. But with me, you could do all things. We have a real tough problem with this. We have a real tough problem with this kind of stuff because it's supernatural. Here's a really good quote I did this Sunday. The supernatural isn't natural. It's not natural. If you're looking for the natural things of the world in God, you're not going to find that. God's in the supernatural. God likes to reveal himself with things that you can't explain in your brain. And I think that a lot of times we just want to be able to explain it because, boy, wouldn't it be easier if we could just explain everything so eloquently, like there's no challenge to it? I've seen God heal so many times. So many times. I'll give some more testimony. I don't want to keep going, but I can go into testimonies. So how do you do this? What should you be doing? Find testimonies. Now, some people go, what happens if they're lying? That's on them. I want to give you, Jesus rebukes the apostles. I think it's in the Gospel of Luke that he rebukes them because they did not. He said to them, this is Luke 24:38, and he said to them, why are you troubled and why do you doubts arise in your hearts? He begins to rebuke them, okay, in the Gospels, at the end of the Gospels, because they did not believe the testimony of Mary and others that they saw Jesus. They come back, remember they come back and they say, the Lord is risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon, and they told about the things that happened on the road to Emmaus and how he was known to them in the breaking of bread. He said, but while they still did not believe, for joy and marveled, he said to them, have you, and look, I'm telling you, God does not, listen to me, God does not, he's not pleased when we don't believe the supernatural. He's not pleased with it. You're not wise because you don't believe. I'm not going to be fooled. You're fooled. That's the problem. If you don't believe the supernatural is for today, you're already deceived. I'm not talking about, randoms. I'm talking, look, is Jesus told us to go heal the sick. And I go like this, I can't heal the sick. Oh, I know you can't. So I'm going to put my spirit on you. And by the power of my spirit, you'll heal the sick. Now, I'm going to tell you, it takes more than just being born again. I want you to understand, you have to live a consecrated life before God. You have to walk in the Spirit with God. You got to walk in the power with God if you want to maintain it, if you want to keep it on your life. We have walked away from holiness and godly living in the church, especially in America. We have walked away from this. We have this gospel that says it doesn't matter what you do. It does. What I fill this up with in my head, what I fill it up with matters. And I want to fill it up with the testimonies. Hey, let me know if you have a testimony. Put it down in the remarks. I'd love to hear your testimony of a miracle. And if you have any questions or comments, please put it in there. You can find us on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to our pages. We're there at the Gate Church and Louis D. Siena Ministries, and both of those have an app as well. So please feel free to download those app and join. Now, for me, I have a product that is out right now called the Arise Institute. And it's an online biblical training course, which can be every month you're going to have so many videos and stuff to read and write. But then we're going to have follow-up videos. We're going to do meetups. You're going to have personal mentoring. Go check it out at louisdsiena.com. Go check that out. And you'll see it right on the front page. It's not hard to find. Click on it. Go read about it. You have any questions, email me. There's a way to email me in there. Do that where you can put something right here and say, hey, Pastor, I'd like to know. And what I'm doing is I've created something. I'm not looking for 100 people. I'm going to have about 10 people. And then next year I'll have more. But the sign up is going to close shortly. Okay, it's going to close the first week of September, because this is not your own personal timeline study. You got to do this with us so that you're on the same track with us and we can have discussions throughout the videos with it. So I love you. God bless you. Hey, come and check us out if you're at the Gate Church. We're going to start doing revival nights in Jacksonville starting September 19th. I can't wait for that. If you're in Jacksonville area and you want to come to those, check out thegatejacks.com for that, and you can find more information. I love you.